So that means that Japan is now again an independent country for the first time since the end of World War II. And that's not going to change. They're not going to be able to turn back the clock on this one. That's for sure. So, and the Japanese, basically, the American people owe a great debt to the Japanese. They've subsidized you for the past 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
They've been just, handing you money and never expecting it back.
That's true.
And they don't get much gratitude for it.
No.
They work hard, they work long, and they all, go home late, jam-packed trains, so that Americans can drive, home from work at 5 p.m. in a giant Humvee,
Yeah, I've seen them.
And so, it's the Americans are going to have to learn to work again. And I already did that. When I had that Forbes job, I only had to write 18 stories a year, and I got a huge salary.
That's all?
Now I'm freelance. I write about 700 stories a year, and I get about the same amount of money. But I'm much happier because I feel alive. I'm actually working again. I'm not just sort of
I understand.
off and wearing a fancy suit and pretending to be important.
I hope that the people who... There are a lot of stories running on the Internet that are absolutely absurd, and they're being spread by known disinformation liars and paid professional intelligence assets.
Which stories are you talking about?
Well, there are a bunch of them. That one of them was the Kissinger story. I mean, it just...
Okay, listen, I heard this myself from MI6 sources, okay?
Yeah.
And, somebody called up the Kissinger's public speaking agency and asked if they could book him. And they were, given a sort of a stone silence. And finally they were just put on an answering machine. So, the thing is, though, that they do feed disinformation. And sometimes, you hear it from a source who's been reliable, but then he tells you something that's not true, and you put it out, and then then they say, oh, look, this guy is full of it. He is not reliable.
Well, you see, you're
trying to discredit you. So you have to be careful. You have to issue corrections.
Absolutely. You've always been one to come forward and correct, as have I, misinformation. I've been tricked. It's difficult now because these people are clever, and good disinformation is 95% what we call truth, and then they'll spin 5%. A lot of these people, though, will take 50% reality and spin an incredible melodrama with the rest of it, none of which ever comes true, and none of which is ever upheld and pushed back in these people's faces and say, hey, wait, what happened to this? Because they turn out a new one the next week. I mean, anyway.
It's true, but there is, I do identify several factions that are trying to, announce a new financial system, and they're kind of playing against each other. You have, former Ambassador Wanta trying to catch his trillions, and then you have this guy Cottrell from Philadelphia Investments is trying to, get his version of the new financial system.
Right. Did you, by the way, did you see the homepage art, David Dees with the octopus?
Yes.
Yeah, it tells it. Great piece of art.
They've been chopping off arm after arm, and they're getting to him. They're getting to him. They still control the Washington scene. They have their puppet Obama, and then they still have a lot of that sort of media garbage out in the U.S. But
that's trash.
They're no longer controlling the world English language sort of voice.
Well, we hope you're right.
First of all, you can see a huge disconnect between the British press and the American press, commercial press.
Mm.
The British are actually, starting to tell the truth. They're saying, BBC says that Al-Qaeda is CIA. Then you have the British Parliament saying that the war in Iraq was illegal. And, so they're no longer controlling the global dialogue. It's only inside the U.S. and even there among the brainwashed majority, but not among the intellectuals. So they're really losing it. There's no doubt about it.
There's an interesting article at the top of featured stories by the French journalist Thierry Masson. It's very good. It's about Haiti and the seismic weapon. And in the article, he does talk about disinformation. He says, one of our collaborators attempted to trace the origin of the allegation regarding the possible artificial causes of the earthquake in Haiti. He was concerned that the whole thing might have been a hoax launched by a certain David Booth, alias Sorcia Fall, which then penetrated government circles throughout the world. In the end, we are not sure exactly who is behind the allegation, but what we know for certain is that this issue is being heatedly discussed at the highest level in several countries in Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Asia. And what he's alluding to is the fact that earthquake-generating technology is certainly in existence and has been for quite some time. But what happens to stories can be sometimes minute. And he says in one other paragraph, while these elements were faithfully relayed by numerous newspapers, especially in the Middle East, they were distorted by the Atlanticist media, which chose to reflect Sorcia Fall, David Booth's article. Fall pulled certain fragments from Viva TV text by adding inverted commas and put them into Hugo Chavez's mouth. What was initially intended by Chavez as a working hypothesis has been therefore converted into the government's position. So these are little tricks that are done all the time by disinformationalists, and it's very difficult for the average person to fall through them without getting
again,
hurt.
You see, in my case, I was told, the day before that the Niigata earthquake was that they were going to hit Niigata with an earthquake. And
I don't want any names.
The next day there was
who told you?
6.8 earthquakes on Japan's biggest nuclear reactor.
Okay.
So then I started doing research into this earthquake machine, and there's enough evidence in the public record now. You don't have to have direct sources like I do to find this out anymore.
Well, they got satellite, they got airborne technology, they can use HARP, they could probably do it from ships. They just need to find an overstressed fault and let it trip with harmonic resonance frequencies. I mean, it's not tough to do. They used to do it in the old days by injecting water into the fault. Well, they can do it right now by resonating the rock and the soil so it in effect turns into a liquefied, or they call it liquefaction, condition, and then the fault slips. It's not hard to do.
The other thing is, there was a declassified U.S. government documents showing that they planned to attack Japan with a tsunami during World War II by setting off a nuclear bomb on a
That's right.
fault. That's the U.S. government document saying they were planning to use an earthquake weapon back in the 1940s.
Correct.
There's so much public evidence there. I mean, again, just go every time there's a tsunami or an earthquake, the U.S. fleet is already there with aid waiting in advance. Think about that. So the point is that, if you publicly accuse these people of mass murder, they don't know what to do. They've always operated in secrecy and impunity. They don't understand that this is no longer their game. I guarantee you that Clinton and Bush and those guys, they're going to be hunted down. There's so many people. I mean, if Bush or if Clinton appeared in Haiti in the streets, I bet a mob would just come there and tear them to pieces. It's not like the old days where they could get away with these big lies. It's over. It's really the end game. I'm hoping it'll be as early as next week that we'll see this. But you cannot, get focused on dates because they'll then deliberately kind of delay things in order to discredit you. The other thing that's very important to remember is that Wernher von Braun, the secretary, that's the father of the rocket that went to the moon and stuff, said they were planning a fake alien invasion. And I've had several sources tell me they were planning to kill 4 billion people. This is true. They were actually Nazis, and the Nazis' plan is in Hitler's Mein Kampf. They wanted to enslave the non-white people and then kill them. This is not a joke.
Well, von Braun's secretary is an acquaintance of mine, and Carol Rosen, and there was a lot that Wernher von Braun knew that he didn't want to talk about, and he did share quite a bit of it with her.
And I had it from other sources, too. I mean, and so you can see.
Well, they've written about it in Global 2000. The Trilateral Commission, and they've all talked about we need to reduce the world population by 80 to 90%. That's their ultimate goal.